The 96th Academy Awards just happened and Oppenheimer took home Best Picture. But what are the greatest Best Picture winners of all time? Hello everybody, my name is Jesse and welcome back to another video on my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. Oppenheimer just took home the Best Picture award the other night, and it's the latest movie to win Best Picture. Today I'm going to be counting down my picks for the top 10 greatest Best Picture winners of all time. So let's hop right into it. At number 10, I have Everything Everywhere All at Once. Some of you may even be a little mad at me for not having this movie higher on the list. I've only seen it once, and I definitely need to rewatch it. It's a movie you really have to see more than once to really fully take everything in and really understand it, and that's why it's at the very bottom of this list. But I do think it deserves a spot in the top 10. It's a really, really creative and incredible movie. I mean, it's insane the things that they were able to pull off, and we've gotten many multiverse movies before, especially with like the MCU, the Marvel movies and stuff. But this movie did it in a very different way, and it's very, very creative. The visuals are all awesome. I love all of the fight sequences. It's got great writing and great characters. So I love everything about this movie. It's just, like I said, I've only seen it once, so I would need to see it probably one or two more times to really fully take in everything and understand everything from this movie. So that's why it's lower on the list. Number 9, I have Braveheart. One of Mel Gibson's best movies, in my opinion. I love the Scotland setting and the time period set in. Again, fantastic battle sequences. I think the thing that holds this movie back for me most of the time is that I do think it's a little bit too long, and it's just not one that I have the urge to revisit that often. When I do revisit and rewatch it, I love it. It's a fantastic movie, but it's just not a movie that I have the want to go back to all that often. At number 8, I have A Beautiful Mind. I just saw this movie for the first time a couple of months ago, and it's Russell Crowe does a fantastic job in the lead role. And it's very interesting watching the story. There are several twists throughout the movie that I do not see coming, that I love. First time I saw him, I gasped. Paul Bettany is a fantastic supporting character, and it's just a very interesting and compelling story. You feel so bad for the main character. I don't remember the character's name at the moment. But the idea is that he contracts Alzheimer's disease, and so he keeps losing his memory and forgetting things, and there are some consequences that go along with that throughout the movie. And there are several scenes where you're on the edge of your seat because his memory is fading and he forgets to do something, and it's just a really interesting movie because everyone else in his life is trying to help him and just wants what's best for him, but he doesn't know that he doesn't really understand that anything is wrong with him, and he doesn't really want, or he doesn't think he needs their help, and he doesn't want their help. I think it's possibly one of Russell Crowe's best movies. I think his best movie overall is one that I'm going to talk about later in this video. But yeah, he does do a fantastic job, and I love this movie. Number 7, I have The Departed. I really enjoy this movie. I've seen it several times. I love all of the actors that are in it. Absolutely stacked cast. Jack Nicholson, Matt Damon, Leonardo DiCaprio, Mark Wahlberg. Just a fantastic cast. I love everyone in this movie. I love all the Boston accents. And once again, with the same thing in common with all the rest of the movies on this list, a very compelling, a very interesting story that I love. I think it's very interesting having these two cops, and one is kind of undercover and trying to figure out who's the rat, but there's a rat on both sides, so they're both sides are kind of clashing, and I love watching it. Leonardo DiCaprio gives a fantastic performance. Matt Damon, Jack Nicholson, I think it's one of his best performances, and Mark Wahlberg gives a great performance alongside Martin Sheen as well. And one thing that's always kind of not necessarily bothered me about this movie, but I think it's interesting that Mark Wahlberg was the only one in the entire cast to get nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Did Mark Wahlberg necessarily deserve to be the only one nominated? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe yourself. Number 6, I have The Silence of the Lambs. I just watched this movie for the first time 1 or 2 months ago, and I now understand what all the hype was about. Hannibal Lecter, Anthony Hopkins gives his best performance that I've ever seen from him. Hannibal Lecter is an incredible villain. He is terrifying and just truly a massive threat on screen. And he does so good at playing a very, very creepy character. Buffalo Bill is also great. I don't know the actor's name, but he did a good job. Jodie Foster did a great job. The story as a whole is really very creepy, and I've always loved kind of detective stories like this, trying to figure out the mystery. So I was interested in the story from the beginning anyway because of that, and I just think it's an all-time classic horror thriller movie. Number 5, I have Schindler's List. This was I think this is one of Steven Spielberg's best movies, and some days I think it may just very well be his best made movie. The way that he was able to put it together and all the performances, and it's not a very rewatchable movie because it's very long and very heavy, but I do believe that it is a very, very important movie for everyone to see at least once in their lifetime. Especially teenagers, I think, before teenagers graduate high school, they should have seen this movie at least once in their life. It's very important topic and very important content, and I saw this movie for the very first time when I was honestly probably a little bit too young to have seen it, but it's one of the movies. The first time I watched it, it really opened my eyes and just made me say, damn, we did these things, and these horrible people actually existed. And it was just really one of the first movies that really opened my eyes to the true horrors of what World War II was like. Steven Spielberg, deservedly so, won Best Picture for this movie, and I think if it had to be between Jurassic Park and this movie, I'm glad that this movie won. Crazy that they both came out in the same year, and I love this movie. The ending never fails to make me emotional as well. Number 4, I have Rocky, easily the best boxing movie, not even a competition. One of the best sports movies ever made, and I love it. It's one of my most rewatched sports movies, I think. Sylvester Stallone does fantastic in the role. I really couldn't imagine anyone else playing that character now. Sylvester Stallone is synonymous with the name Rocky Balboa, and Apollo Creed is a good antagonist. He's not really like a full-on villain, but he's definitely a great antagonist to Rocky in this movie, and I love the premise, the story of him, kind of Rocky being kind of a down on his luck boxer, and he's just trying to make it through, doing any fight he can to make a living, and then he gets this great chance to fight one of the greatest boxers ever, and he ends up victorious in the end. So it's a really motivational movie. It's quick, it's simple, and it's just a great rewatchable movie. Of course, I have to mention the score in this movie. I mean, that the main theme is like one of the most recognized movie themes ever. I mean, you start playing that and people immediately know it's from Rocky, and they think of that training montage, cracking the raw eggs in the glass and drinking them for breakfast. It's gross, but it's a classic. Number 3, I have Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King. Lord of the Rings is one of my favorite trilogies of all time, and Return of the King is just everything that you love and want from a big scale, big budget fantasy movie like this. And it really closes out the trilogy very well, gives everyone a satisfying ending, and has some of the best battle sequences I've ever seen in like a fantasy movie, or probably just any movie in general. And it's a very long movie, but at the same time, it doesn't feel quite as long as some of the other longer movies on this list. It's one of those movies that flies by, and I love all of the characters. I love the story. The score, again, is incredible. And we just don't really get massive scale fantasy movies like this anymore. I think probably the closest we've gotten to getting a movie quite like this in recent years is Dune Part 2 that just came out. I mean, that's really the closest that we've gotten to a movie like that since this movie came out. And I mean, the movie won Best Picture for a reason. It's amazing. Probably one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's just phenomenal. Number 2, I have Gladiator, another one of my favorite movies of all time. My favorite Ridley Scott movie, my favorite Russell Crowe movie. Joaquin Phoenix is despicable as, and just freaking evil, easy to hate as the villain. He's just one of those villains that you end up waiting to die. You want him to die so much for what he has done and what he does do. Like I said, Russell Crowe does a phenomenal job in the role. I love him in this movie. And just as a whole, I just love this movie. It's incredible. I also always forget that Jimon Hansu is in this movie. He does great as well, and it's like I always forget that. So every time I see him, like it's like seeing him for the first time, and it's always a nice surprise. But coming in at number 1 for me, my favorite Best Picture winner of all time, at least right now, is Oppenheimer. My favorite movie of 2023, damn near my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. It's top 3. It's slowly trying to work its way up. It might become number 1 one day. I love this movie. I love Christopher Nolan, and this was one of my most anticipated movies of 2023, easily. And I knew, the moment I walked out of the theater, I knew that I had just watched the best movie of the year, that I had just watched the Best Picture, winner of several awards at the Oscars. And boy, was I right. I mean, Cillian Murphy gives one of his best performances ever here. Same with Robert Downey Jr. Christopher Nolan probably gives one of his best directed movies. The visual effects are incredible, and I mean, not really visual effects because they're not effects. They like Christopher Nolan actually did that. He created like a miniature bomb to set off. Everything here is just absolutely incredible. The set design, the cinematography, the sound is all just amazing here, and it's what makes this movie one of my favorites. I love the switch back and forth between the color and the black and white cinematography, and this movie just proves why Christopher Nolan truly is one of the all-time greatest directors of all time, my favorite director of all time. And Christopher Nolan finally won the award for Best Director for this movie. So it was about damn time, and he did it. So there you have it. Those are my top 10 favorite Best Picture winners of all time. This list might change in the future because there are a bunch on the list that I either haven't seen in a while or I haven't seen yet. So this list very well could change by next year. I might do this again when the 97th Oscars come around. But for now, this is my list. Do you agree with it? Let me know. What are your favorite Best Picture winners of all time? And if you agree with my list, would you change the order or would you keep it exactly how it is? Until my next video, like this video and subscribe.